I used to believe that psychopaths were easy to spot. They were the villains in documentaries, the cold-eyed criminals in late-night interviews, the charming CEOs in viral confessionals. They were never the boy who helped you carry groceries up 3 flights of broken stairs. They were never the friend who remembered your coffee order before you did. And they were definitely never someone like Adrian. I met him on a Tuesday that smelled like rain and burnt toast. I had just moved into a narrow apartment above a laundromat, trying to start over after quitting a job that had slowly hollowed me out. My life at that point felt like a room with the lights switched off, technically intact, but impossible to navigate. I was struggling with a box labeled books when it slipped from my hands and spilled across the hallway. Paperbacks scattered like startled birds. I muttered a curse under my breath. "That's one way to redecorate," a voice said calmly. I looked up to see a tall man at the end of the corridor. He had neat dark hair, steady gray eyes, and a smile that didn't quite reach them. He walked toward me without hesitation, crouched down, and began picking up my books. "You're new," he said. Not a question. A statement. "Yeah. Just moved in." "Apartment 3B, he asked. I nodded, surprised. "The landlord only renovates when someone leaves in a hurry," he replied casually. "You'll want to avoid the kitchen tap. It screams." I laughed. He didn't. He stacked my books carefully, aligning their edges with meticulous precision before handing them back to me. "I'm Adrian," he said. "Maya." He held my gaze a second longer than most people would. Not in a flirtatious way. More like he was studying a puzzle he intended to solve. Over the next few weeks, Adrian became a quiet constant in my life. He knocked once when my power went out and fixed the fuse in under 2 minutes. He brought over soup when he heard me coughing through the thin walls. He remembered details about me that even my closest friends forgot: my fear of thunderstorms, my allergy to kiwi, the way I twisted my ring when I was anxious. He noticed everything. At first, I thought it was sweet. We started sharing late-night conversations in the hallway, leaning against opposite walls as the laundromat machines thudded below us. He told me he worked in risk assessment for a consulting firm. When I asked what that meant, he said, "I predict what people will do before they do it." "Like a psychic?" I teased. "No," he said evenly. "Like a statistician." There was something about the way he spoke, measured, precise, emotionally flat. He didn't fidget. He didn't stumble over words. He rarely laughed unless I did first. But he listened. Really listened. One night, after I'd had a particularly brutal day of job rejections, I confessed that I felt invisible. Replaceable. "Everyone is replaceable," Adrian said calmly. I flinched. He tilted his head slightly, observing my reaction. "But that doesn't mean you're insignificant. Ants are replaceable. They still build civilizations." It wasn't comforting in a traditional sense, but it grounded me. Strangely, that was his gift. He didn't sugarcoat. He didn't offer hollow reassurance. He presented reality like a clean, sharp object and trusted me to handle it. The first crack in the illusion appeared 3 months into our friendship. We were sitting in a cafe when a waiter accidentally spilled water across our table, soaking Adrian's sleeve. The waiter apologized profusely, clearly shaken. I expected irritation. Maybe a sarcastic comment. Instead, Adrian's expression didn't change at all. He stared at the waiter for a full 5 seconds, unblinking. The air around us felt like it had thickened. "It's fine," he said finally, voice perfectly level. But his eyes were cold. Empty. Like someone had switched off the lights behind them. The waiter hurried away. I tried to shake off the chill creeping up my spine. Later that week, I overheard 2 neighbors whispering near the mailboxes. "Did you hear about his ex?" one said. They said she just disappeared. Moved away, the other corrected quickly. That's what he told people. They noticed me listening and fell silent. That night, curiosity gnawed at me. I searched his name online. Nothing criminal. No arrests. No scandals. Just a sparse digital footprint and an old academic article about behavioral modeling with his name listed as a co-author. Still, something felt off. The confirmation came unexpectedly. We were watching a documentary about violent offenders. I don't even remember why I chose it. Maybe some subconscious part of me was testing him. Halfway through, a psychologist on screen described psychopathy as a personality disorder marked by lack of empathy, shallow emotions, manipulativeness, and superficial charm. I glanced at Adrian. He wasn't watching the screen. He was watching me. "Do you believe that?" he asked. "Believe what?" "That empathy is necessary for morality." The question felt like stepping onto thin ice. "I think it helps," I said carefully. He nodded once. "I don't experience empathy the way most people describe it." My stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means I understand emotions cognitively. I can predict them. Replicate appropriate responses. But I don't feel them in my body." The word hovered unspoken between us. Psychopath. He didn't look ashamed. Or proud. Just factual. "I was diagnosed at 19, he added. High-functioning. Non-violent. Why are you telling me this?" I whispered, "Because you would eventually figure it out. And I prefer control over disclosure." My heart pounded. Every memory rearranged itself in my mind, the precision, the observation, the calmness under pressure. "You've never hurt anyone?" I asked. "No," he said simply. "I see no strategic advantage in it." That answer should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself asking, "Then why be my friend?" He studied me again, like that first day in the hallway. "Because you're honest," he said. "You say what you mean. Most people perform. You don't. That's it? You interest me." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't sentimental. It was the closest thing to sincerity he could offer. I didn't sleep that night. Part of me wanted to run. Cut contact. Move apartments. Start over again. But another part, the tired, lonely part, remembered the soup when I was sick. The fuse fixed in the dark. The late-night conversations that steadied me when I felt like dissolving. Adrian might not feel empathy. But he had chosen, consistently, to act with care. Weeks passed. I watched him more carefully after that. He held doors open. He returned extra change when a cashier miscounted. He donated anonymously to the laundromat owner when her son needed surgery. Not because he felt compassion. Because he had decided it was the correct course of action. One evening, I asked him directly, "If you don't feel empathy, why do good things?" He considered this. "Because chaos is inefficient," he said. "Because harming others destabilizes systems I rely on. Because I prefer a world where people trust me." That sounds self-serving. "All morality is self-serving at some level," he replied calmly. "The difference is whether you're honest about it." I hated how much sense that made. The true test came unexpectedly. I received a call from my younger brother, panicked and in tears. He'd been in a minor accident and didn't know what to do. I froze. My brain short-circuited. Adrian took the phone gently from my shaking hand, his voice shifted, steady, authoritative, clear. He asked precise questions, guided my brother step by step, arranged a tow truck, even contacted a lawyer friend for advice. When he hung up, I burst into tears. Not from fear. From relief. He didn't hug me. But he sat beside me in silence until my breathing slowed. "You did that perfectly," I whispered. "It required problem solving," he said. "Still." He looked at me then, something almost curious flickering in his eyes. "I don't feel what you feel," he said. "But I don't want you to suffer." That was the closest he'd ever come to tenderness. Over time, I realized something uncomfortable and strangely beautiful: kindness doesn't always originate from warmth. Sometimes it comes from choice. Adrian would never cry at a sad movie. He would never feel his heart swell at a sunset. He would never experience the visceral ache of empathy that defined so much of my own emotional world. But every day, he chose not to harm. He chose to help. He chose restraint when indifference would have been easier. Maybe that's what friendship really is, not shared feelings, but shared decisions. I accidentally became friends with a psychopath. And in doing so, I learned that goodness isn't always about what you feel. Sometimes, it's about what you decide to do anyway.